Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Virginia City Council chambers. This is a regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. We have a full agenda this morning. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. And sitting in for our city clerk is Chris Mirafiordi, our administrative assistant. And we have all councilors present. We have Councilor Beyondich, who is participating on Zoom or on the phone. And for those who are listening at home in the audience, we have our City Administrator, Britt C. Bennis, our Finance Director, Sherry Erickson, will be joining us shortly. We have John Sullivan, our Community Planning Department. We have Matt Reed from SCH, our term engineer of record. We have Dave Tuttle, who's sitting in the far back, who is one of our VITA members and committee members on some of the task forces that we have. And then we have two presenters today, and then also in the audience is the labor representative for ASME Council, Scott Duranko. So we have presenters from Wold Architects. We have a private citizen to make a presentation on potential property acquisition up on North Side. So that being said, this is a Committee of the Whole meeting. And I'll turn this meeting over to our City Administrator for the agenda, Britt C. Bennis. Britt, and good morning, everyone.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is John McNamara from Wold Architects regarding the agreement for architectural services for the Public Safety Center project.
Well, good morning, Mr. McNamara. If you just turn that light on to its green. And welcome to the City Committee of the Whole meeting, the City Council meeting, and a long drive up from where you came from. So welcome, and we're happy to have you here today.
Well, Mayor and Council, it's great to be here today. It was a beautiful drive up today, so we're happy to introduce ourselves to the Council and engage in some conversation about the public safety facility. Thank you again for selecting us for this project. We're excited to get started on it. So I have a short agenda for today, which I really want to just kind of talk a little bit about our process, answer any questions that the council might have related to our scope of services, talk a little bit about the schedule as far as what we think we might need to put some of the stuff together, and then certainly engage in any conversation that the council might have related to next steps. So by way of introduction, again, I'm John McNamara, partner in charge for Wold Architects. We have a pretty good sized team that'll be helping with this project because we got multiple things that are going to be going on, not only with the planning and design, but also for the land piece of this thing and the funding piece of it. With me today, I have Bill Scalzo with Scalzo Architects out of Duluth. He'll be helping us not only during the design process, but also with quality control and during construction. I have my project manager, Mike Klass, is here as well with us today. Melissa Stein is our police planner, is joining us today, as well as Paige Sullivan, which will be helping out on the fire design. So we've got a pretty robust team, not only of the people that are here today, but as a firm, we have well over 200 employees here in our St. Paul office, so we have lots of resources to be able to handle the schedule that the city is expecting to do. We have in-house mechanical and electrical engineering, so we bring a full team to the table for design. And as I mentioned, with the land acquisition piece of it, we have Henning Professional Services will be providing help with the land acquisition piece of it. And we brought on Bolton and Mech not only for civil engineering, but they also have specialized experience with the funding piece of it with the USDA funding. So all of those folks are part of our team. For those that you have looked at our proposal and our contract, we have all of these folks under our contract. So we'll be providing those services to the city as part of our work. I'm thinking a little bit about the exciting part of the project, which is really for us the planning and design piece of it. The big part of what we want to spend the next couple months doing is really getting to understand and get agreement on the scope of work for not only for the fire department, but for the police department as well. And so I put together a diagram which really kind of reflects that as we look to the month of April, which surprisingly enough is almost done, but we want to spend some time really working through the program with the chiefs and their staff, really making sure that we collect the right amount of information to make sure that we have the right solution for the city. I know there's been some planning done on it, so we want to make sure we're looking at all of that stuff, but really kind of take a look at how we can combine these facilities together, utilizing our experience with public safety facilities to understand where there might be some synergies between the two departments that we can utilize spaces effectively in there. So we're going to put together a core planning group, which will consist of the chiefs, the staff, some administrative folks, and certainly any representation from council that might be appropriate to really give us some, kind of that 50,000-foot view of what we want to try to accomplish for the project. But then we're going to set up subcommittees for the fire department, for the police department, and then also for the land acquisition and funding piece of it. So we'll have 3 subcommittees that will also feed back into that core planning group so that we can get some agreement on the need. And we think that this whole initial design process, the pre-design or schematic design as we call it, will probably take us through mid to late summer in that July-August timeframe. I'll work with the city administrator as to when we want to come back to the committee of the whole for any updates and stuff like that. But along the way, our hope is that we're going to come up with some design solutions for the site that we can get some agreement on, and then we'll want to bring that back to the council. If there's some desire to do some community-based outreach, we can do that during this period of time as well. That would be good to understand what the council would like to have for that. And then as we finish up July, we would want to come back and get overall approval from the council before we move forward into the next round of the USDA submittal. Before we submit that phase 2 application, we want to make sure that we have agreement on not only the needs and what the solution is going to be, but also where we are with the cost on it. So there'll be some cost estimating and some interaction with potentially the construction manager during that period of time if we're that far along in the process. So if we're not, we also have cost estimators on our staff, which will also provide that needed cost estimating as we go through the project. So for us, I think one of the keys to any project, and we talked about this at the interview, is really gaining consensus and ownership of the solution. And so we engage in a fairly collaborative process that engages all of the stakeholders in this facility, not only from the public safety side of things with the chiefs, but also other city staff, certainly the council. And we want to go through a process to make sure that we've established the goals and criteria for the project in this first initial stage, so that as we go through and get input from the users of the facility and we start to evaluate those solutions, we can use that criteria that we worked on together to evaluate those solutions to be able to come up with overall buy-in on this on the overall solution. And we think that that'll ultimately end up with a solution for the city that has a high level of ownership in the end. And so what I had mentioned is that this initial core planning group, which we believe would include the fire department, city staff, other stakeholders that might be important to the process, really kind of helps us develop the guiding principles for the project, what those goals and objectives are. And it involves a high level of collaboration amongst not only the leadership, but also staff to make sure that we, look at all of the solutions, so we have a modern public safety facility that has all of the features in it that will stand the test of time. Obviously, you have a facility that has served the community well for over 100 years, but there's been a lot of changes that we need to bring to the table to make sure that the solution that you have in the end will also last the city for an equal amount of time. And so we'll work together with city administration to put that team together. We'll have a kickoff meeting on that later on today to try to make sure that we've involved all of the people that we need to in that process, and then use that to move the process forward. And so this lovely diagram really kind of shows how some of those subcommittees might work. And so our core planning group will include the chiefs and the deputy chiefs. It'll include planning and zoning folks, administration, and then there's going to be some crossover into the subcommittees. So our chief and deputy chiefs will also serve on those subcommittees, so they'll be the bridge between the subcommittees to the core planning group. And similarly, Britt will also serve on that core planning group to give us a bridge over to the land and the funding piece of it, so we have good representation across all of the different groups so that we can kind of break this down into some parallel tracks to be able to move the schedule forward. So there's a lot that needs to be done between now and end of summer so that we can bring a final recommendation back, and I think these groups will help us get to the level of input that we need during that period of time. So from the schedule side of things, we're going to do a kickoff meeting here today to kind of talk through the initial programming pieces of it. Our goal is to, as we get into May, to get a finalized space program set up for the building so that we know what the total scope of the work will be between the fire department and the police department. Start putting together some of those design concepts, see how they fit with the site solution on that. Finalize those concepts as we come into July. On a parallel track to that, we will start to work on the land acquisition piece of it, have a kickoff meeting on that to determine the scope of work for that, and that work will happen from May through September, so that as we come to funnel all of this stuff through to a final recommendation, not only will we have a design solution for the building, but we'll also have a plan of attack for the funding piece of it and for the land piece of it as well. And then depending upon the outcome of all of that, optimistically, we would start the final design for the public safety facility, late summer, early fall, through the end of the year, engaging with the construction manager to potentially look at bidding this project out in the spring of '22, anticipating, once all the approvals are in place. So if there are any hiccups along the road that we need to pause on anything, you would typically expect a construction process to be about 12 months for a facility of this size. So depending upon the outcome of some of the things up above, obviously pending council action on going out to bid, that's kind of roughly what we would expect for a schedule for that work. For our contract with the city, what we had proposed in our proposal response was 6% of the cost of construction would be our design fees for the project. For contract purposes, looking at what traditionally public safety facilities would cost based on the square footage that's currently proposed, we would anticipate about a $15 million allocation for the construction portion of it. That isn't to say that that's the total project cost for it, because there's also the land piece of it, there's furniture and equipment and some of those other things, but just as a way to establish what our efforts would be for design, that works out to be about a $900,000 fee for the design of the building itself. The land acquisition piece of it is a little bit more complex. We have put a fixed fee on the initial determination of the values, what properties, what their status is, what the process would be for moving forward on that, which is what that first kind of phase of the land acquisition piece of it would be. Then what we would do is come back to administration and council with here's what the plan is for the land piece of it, get approval for how we would go about doing that, and depending upon what we learned during that first phase of it, we would come back to council at that point with here's what the effort is going to be in order to finalize the land purchase piece of it, and then we would adjust our contract for that phase 2 work. From what we've talked with our land experts, it can be a simple effort or it can be a complex effort depending upon feedback that we get during that phase. So it's really difficult for us to establish what that effort might be. I would give you too large a number to feel comfortable with at this point in time. So I think it's in everybody's best interest to do this first phase of work to make sure that we all understand what the phase 2 acquisition and relocation piece will be before we establish that fee on that. And we'll do that as quickly as we can so that the council has some understanding as far as what that effort is going to be. The USDA funding piece of it is pretty straightforward. There's very specific requirements from USDA as to what level of detail they want for the project at that phase 2 submittal portion of it. So we have a fee in there for our work to be able to put that application documentation together, and then our USDA funding person for the technical part of the actual application piece. And so we're going to look to set up a meeting with to kick off that process here in the next month to make sure that we understand when we want to submit that phase 2 application. But right now we're expecting that's probably going to be in that August timeframe at this point in time. As part of the project, we also are going to need to go through a sustainability process for the state of Minnesota, which is called B3. And so with our work, we'll do energy modeling of the building. We'll develop the sustainable strategies that are going to be incorporated into it, manage the B3 application and the reporting form on it. And then once we gain feedback from the departments and the design on it, we'll bring those strategies back to the core planning group and then ultimately to council so that everybody understands what's going to be included in the project in order to meet the B3 requirements for that. And so we have established what our work effort would be for that and what it will take for us to manage that process with the state of Minnesota on your behalf. One of the things that I typically spend a little bit of time talking about, because it's a little bit complex at the early stages of the project, is what our involvement needs to be for the furniture and equipment piece of it. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that goes into a police department and a fire station as far as furniture and the equipment that's needed to run not only the fire department, but there'll be other things that are necessary for that. And traditionally, we will work during the initial budgeting and schematic design phase to establish what that scope of work would be. And if we're going to be bidding that work out or quoting that work out, we would establish what the value of that is, and then our fee would be 6% of whatever that value is. There might be some stuff that the chiefs already have worked out on their own that they don't need our help with, and so we use that initial design phase to kind of figure out where the scope of responsibilities are, and then once we have agreement on that, we'll amend our contract with whatever that dollar amount is based on that 6%. And technology and AV design is similar to that. Part of this project is likely to include an emergency operations center, so there's some specialty technology pieces that go along with that. Some of the things that are already included in the construction cost, like data cabling, card access systems, some of the rough-in stuff, that's already included in our base fee, but some of the more specialized technology things. Also, you may have a vendor that you already work with to integrate with some of your stuff that we would just be, a consultant to help with that. Then our fees wouldn't necessarily be as high. So it depends on to what level of service the IT department or the city needs for that. And once we establish what that scope of work is, then we would establish our fee based on what that value is, similar to the furniture and equipment. And again, our goal is to establish all of that in the early phase of design so that we're not getting towards the end of it and all of a sudden it's okay, we need to adjust our fees to include this. So I want to be upfront with council early on as far as what our involvement is so that we have a full service to the city as we move forward with stuff. My control here.
And while we're making a little adjustment there to the presentation, I just want to recognize Chief Lewis from the Fire Department has joined our meeting today. And I was remiss in not recognizing our City Attorney, Brian Lindsay, so thank you.
I looked at my presentation. That's really the last slide in there. So with that, Mayor and Council, I turn it back over to you for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. Any questions, comments, or concerns that the council would like to address this morning? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for coming and presenting. Appreciate it, and we're excited about the project. Just a quick question regarding the actual contract. Is there any language in there, and I read it this weekend and I'm reading it again this morning, so regarding if change orders were to come up, is there any language in that, and how typical does Wold engage in change orders? That's been a thing around here, so I just want to ask that.
Change orders depends on what we're looking at as far as change orders for a project. I'm assuming the ugly conversation around whether it's design issues or unforeseen conditions and some of those types of things. One of the things that we strive very hard to do is to make sure that the city only pays fair value for any changes that occur on it. We're actively engaged with whatever construction partner you choose for the project, to make sure that if there is like an unforeseen condition or something like that, that we're evaluating it in a way to make sure that it's a fair value to it. So I would say that our reputation is pretty solid as far as making sure that, we are reviewing costs and making sure that when we're presenting them to you, we know that this is something that is valid based on the contract. And I would commit to you that we would come up and present those things in case there are any questions that would come up. If there is an unfortunate situation where there is something that gets built incorrectly based on something that we do, we would work with the city and administration to figure out what's fair as far as compensation on that. So we don't shy away from, the hard conversations when they come. I'd rather be upfront with some of that type of stuff and make sure that
That
the
leads
city.
to my next question. So sometimes in different contracts that have come before us, there's an actual percentage fee on top of not only the change order, but then a certain percentage fee. So that actually wouldn't be the case with this contract.
We do not have that clause in there. We feel like once we agree upon a fixed fee, unless there's a significant change in scope, like all of a sudden we find that it's a 60, 70,000 square foot building, that's probably a little much for us to absorb. If you look through our fee proposal, I am including about $500,000, $500,000 for what I would consider design changes during the design of it, so that, in case the project, as we do the estimating, ends up being $15 million versus $14.5 million, or it goes to 15.5 or 16 million, we're not going to come back to council for any changes on that. And during construction, we do not charge fees on change orders and
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Beyondich, question for Mr. McNamara.
Yes, I do have a question, and I thank him for the presentation. My question is, on your team, the people on your team, are these the people that we will see here, actually, contact with us throughout the whole project?
I think I understand your question. Is the team that's here the team that'll be interfacing with the city? Yes, it is. You will probably see different people at different times, but for the most part, the people that are here today for our kickoff meeting and some of the other teams will be out here at different times. Like our engineers who are in the proposal will be the engineers designing it, and will be out here meeting with city staff as we go through it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Freely.
Good morning, John. Thanks for taking the trip up to Virginia. As always, it's hard for you to be comprehensive in terms of the total costs that we're going to be having incurred. Like, for example, when we look at 4.1, the supplemental services, there's a number of things that are not provided. Case in point, for example, the telecommunications, data design, security evaluation, all that kind of thing will be additional costs that we're going to have to contract with some other firm for, I'm sure. That's one of the concerns that we all have an idea in terms of what the additional costs will be on top of what we've heard today. That's one thing. And the other big piece for me is the property and land acquisition. It seems like a huge task to me. I don't know what your experience has been with regard to that, and whether or not there's been any kind of preliminary footwork done with that, so that there's kind of some knowledge out in those neighborhoods that this may be occurring, or is that not, or is it, I'm not sure how you even begin that process to do that, and it's not a surprise to people like, what, you want my house kind of thing? Can you just explain a little bit in regard to how you move forward with that piece that I think is kind of initial significant piece to this project?
Mayor and Council, I'll answer both of those questions. First of all, we will provide all of those services that you asked. If you would like us to fix our fee on the technology and the furniture piece now before we finally execute the contract, we can establish what we believe the right value for that would be. But we're working a little bit in a vacuum as far as not having had some of those conversations with city leadership and stuff like that. We have all of that expertise in-house and will provide the data and technology design. Some of those things are in there as additional services because There are some of our clients that have that expertise in-house and don't need our help for that, but we are fully capable of providing those, and we're happy to fix our fee on those if you'd like us to upfront. So any feedback on that would be appropriate, and then we can adjust our proposal accordingly. You are correct, though, with the land acquisition piece of it. The very first phase of that work, which we're going to get a kickoff meeting set up here in the next couple of weeks, is to establish exactly what you're asking for, as to what level of information is out there, where is the city at with initial purchase discussions, if any, start the appraisal process, understanding where all the final ownership pieces of those are, and then understand where some of those hurdles might be, so that we can come back to council and explain what's going to be involved with that complex land purchase. I've had a number of conversations, not only with Sonia, but also with Bolton and Mech, who also does a lot of land acquisition through their right-of-way type of stuff, and have agreed that that's probably the most complex part of it. So you are extremely accurate in your assessment of that, and that's why I'm a little soft as far as the timeline for when some of those approvals might occur is going to be dependent upon what we find out. And so we really want to get that land piece of it started right away, so that we can then answer those questions that you have. And some of the initial dialogue is exactly what you're asking for, which is we need to figure out the ownership of the pieces in there, who is, a willing seller versus somebody that we need to have more conversation with. How do we buffer some of the information flow so that it comes through an individual versus multiple individuals? And so that's kind of really the next step, and as part of our fee proposal is to do that.
To those people in those neighborhoods, or just?
An organizational meeting to start with, and then during that process, we'll determine what that communication process is for the landowners.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. Anything you want to add, Britt, about, we've done some preliminary work on that property with respect to
Just soil borings and,
soil borings?
yep, phase 1 and phase
So,
2. Okay.
We're gravitating in that regard, so thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming in today and presenting. This project is kind of interesting and a unique perspective, because we're just going through a $35 million project where we're learning all the questions we're asking you today. So I think that's one of the things that you and your team need to be aware of, is that for myself, there's a couple things I'm a little gun shy about, because we were led to believe one thing, or I was led, what I thought I was led to believe, and then things got changed, and it's in the contract language, those technicalities. And so when I ask you questions, they're genuine questions. I want to know for sure. We've been kind of teasing our Parks and Rec director a little bit that he might be helping on this project too, and he's ignoring me right now, and I'm okay with that. But just know that we're from one large construction project to another. So I would ask for you and your team's patience, as well as we ask you questions and we go through this process, because we want to hopefully get this one even better than the one we're currently working on. So thank you, and thank you all for coming up today.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara, and thank you, Councilor Johnson. Just to also acknowledge that our partner rec director, Brian Silber, has also joined the meeting today. I just want to say that, this process started several years ago, and now we're at the point where we're on the cusp of building another state-of-the-art facility that can provide law enforcement and public safety and EMS and fire services to the region for decades to come. And we're going to be providing a world-class environment for our employees. We have a full-time fire department and a full-time ALS service where we run 6 ambulances. So this is very different from a volunteer fire department or a system where they're on paid on call. This is a commitment that the city has made. This is a commitment that our citizens have made with respect to this. So we went through this entire process, vetted as many people as we could. We did conduct our due diligence, and now we're here today with Wold Architects, with you and your staff and your team, moving forward with a project. looking at your proposal, I can only say that I'm impressed with the process moving forward and your candor about what moves forward. Every single contract has these fixed fees in it. I've seen it before. My experience as in working with an architectural firm down the metropolitan area, when I worked with the Metropolitan Airports Commission, same situation there, same situation with our Miners Event and Convention Center. This is just a process moving forward. There's fees involved because we hire professionals which to do our work. So we've selected you so far to be our architect. You've come to make this presentation as the kickoff, so as you had indicated, moving forward. And I anticipate and I'm confident that we'll be able to move this forward and come to a resolution where we can build a world-class facility for the employees who really deserve it, to live and work in an environment for 24 hours a day, and be able to give us the opportunity to provide our citizens with a professional piece where we'll have not only a police department and a fire department and everything in one entity. There'll be a training facility involved there. There'll be all kinds of things that, that your architectural firm has been looking at for all the input that we've had. It's important that we have an emergency management system, the ability to have an emergency operations center, at least at the local level, as opposed to using the county's EOC center in Duluth. So all those things will come to fruition. This is a long project we're moving forward with, so I'm confident that we'll be successful moving forward. Yes, we have challenges ahead, but we've always had challenges with our major projects. So with the public safety building coming into play, with our Mech design that we're doing right now, with our street and alley improvement process that we're moving forward, and I've used this analogy before, and I know the city council has heard this before, and it might cringe when I say it, but I use the Yogi Bear analogy that, when you come to a fork in the road, you take it. You don't sit there and wonder, which fork am I going to take? Am I going to stay here? We have to move our city forward. This is just one of the many projects that we're looking for. There are challenges ahead. There are financial issues involved, but we've been able to overcome them because we have a very strong professional staff to help guide us through there, and the city attorney staff as well. So I'm confident that we'll be able to move forward with this project, and I wish that we'll be successful moving forward. So does anybody have any other questions? Councilor Paulson.
No, I don't have any other question. Do we need to make a motion to accept the standard form agreement?
Yes, we do.
I'll move that.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson moves. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
A support by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. McNamara, staff, thank you very much for coming up and making the presentation.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Jeff Lackner regarding potential property acquisition on 16th Street North.
Morning, Mr. Lackner.
Morning. Thank you, Mayor, councilors. My name is Jeff Lackner. I'm here representing my parents, Ron and Winnie Lackner. They own a large piece of property on 16th Street North. It's approximately about 2 city blocks. It's already plotted. It continues right off of Fairview Addition, and they're looking to have a proper land use for it and want to sell it to the city so that it's developed properly. We did bring this up a few years back, but at the time, the city was in they had the bridge problem where they had the shortfall, so it was kind of put on hold, and now we're here back seeing if the city has any interest or if we should move forward in a different direction.
And thank you, Mr. Lackner. This property is zoned residential,
Correct.
and it actually abuts the Fairview edition of our development up in Fairview. There is a piece of the parcel that you did sell on what was the northwest end of the property. Did you sell? There's a
EHS, we sold it and they built a large home on there, so.
right. So it's a
Home.
group home, right? So how many acres do you have there, Mr. Lackner?
I don't know acres off the top, but I do know that it is plotted in 25-foot lots, and there's approximately there's almost 600 feet of frontage. It's like 575, 585, depending on the easements. And it goes back 275 feet.
So you have them plotted at 25 by 275?
Well, no, they're plotted. The city already has them plotted. They've been plotted.
At 25-foot lots?
Yeah, they've been plotted for years.
Okay.
So
So,
just to give you a little background, currently the houses that are in there average between $4,500 and $10,000 a year in property taxes. And the city's portion of those property taxes, it's not like commercial. The city's portion is 60%. So if you put up 6 or 7 houses in there at $300,000, that's $25,000 to $35,000 for the city in taxes per year, which is about a quarter to a third of 1% of your overall budget.
and thank you, Mr. Lackner. Have you considered private development on your own in this regard?
Well, we've talked about it, but at the age that my parents are currently at, it's probably not feasible. You know, I don't want to do a 2 or 3 year project for them. They're looking to retire right now, so we're looking for a bulk sale.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would encourage you to, if these properties are so valuable, I think you should sell them yourself. And with that, I will make a motion to receive and file the information.
Okay, Councilor Johnson makes a motion to receive and file the request that's being made by Mr. Lackner on behalf of his family for the acquisition or the purchase or the discussion about the acquisition of that parcel will be identified in the minutes as the parcel codes up on north side adjacent to Fairview. Is there support? Is there support? Is there support? Motion fails for lack of support. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Councilor Baraboo?
Yeah, we've had this piece of property as long as I've been on this city council, or Mr. Lackner and his family have had this property. I think we need to get a little more due diligence. Jeff, I would appreciate it if you could put together a proposal to the city of what you expect and what you're looking for a sale price on that property. We don't have enough information yet to make any type of decision on that. So I would like to see a little more information and working with our city administrator, or actually our planning gentleman, Mr. Sullivan, on this before we absolutely say we're not going to do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, right now, we could convert it into garages pretty easily. We already have 2 people that want to build garages, and 1 person wants to put rail box cars, those, they want to put that on there. So we could sell 3 50-foot lots right now if we wanted to. So it's neighbors that already live up there.
And I understand that if I live up there, I'd want to do that too, but there are some zoning issues with respect to allowing those kind of facilities built, so there may be some prohibitive opportunities there.
Well, my parents live up there, so they want to have a comprehensive development of the area, so.
I think that's another reason for a further discussion with our planning department, Mr. Sullivan, and our staff regarding some more information that, as Councilor Johnson requested. We'll go to Councilor Barnzelli first and then on to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Barnzelli.
Do you remember coming to us years ago to buy some of that land? Did we ever buy any of that?
Well, no, what happened was you were doing the bridge development at the time when we came to the city, and there was a shortfall of, what was it, 1.8 million or 2.8 million or something? I don't remember, and basically they just there was no funds to do anything, so it was just kind of tabled.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that for all of that property like you're doing today, or was it
Yep,
just?
it was the same amount as today. And it was appraised at the time. I don't know, you still have the appraisal? We have it somewhere, so, on file, if you wanted to look at the old appraisal.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's another reason for us to get more information from our staff with respect to this property, what it would entail. Councilor Paulson, and then on to Councilor Freely.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks so much for coming
Sure.
to present this. I do remember you guys coming forward about this before. But I think right now, I for sure think we need more information, but where I was going before this was even with our land up in Midway, I truly believe that we should be seeking out a builder, developer for any potential, land acquisition that we have here in Virginia, because we are landlocked, we talk about that all the time. A question that I have is, is all of our residential tax portion 60%? Does anyone know the answer to that?
Pretty close. Your share of the taxes,
Right.
Brett would know that for sure.
That's an average. Sherry?
Offhand, I do not know, but I will confirm with Brandon Larson and let you guys know.
Thank you, Sherry, because I do think that that's something that we should consider as we go forward with. I'm not necessarily comfortable, Jeff, going forward unless we had some kind of a developer that, we could partner with and say, hey, here's what we have in Midway, here's what we have in our landlocked area here in Virginia. How do we want to develop that residentially? So I'd really like us to consider, I don't know what that process would entail, but I would probably think that John could maybe work on some of that information on what lots we do have and work on some sort of a plan going forward. With the new school being built, with the new Mech, I think we're going to start seeing more activity here, people moving up from different metro areas. I think we are seeing that right now, that people are coming forward. So I think it would be prudent for us to put together a plan and include any and all potential land that we would that we have acquired or that would be acquired if there is a developer that would be interested in coming forward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Paulson. And just to tag on, it's a tangent. We are investigating potential developments in the properties we do own. Right now, we have sent our engineering team and our planning team up to Midway as an example. So hopefully they'll be coming back to the council for some more information, exactly what you're requesting moving forward, Councilor Paulson. Thank you. Councilor Freely.
I'm just trying to envision where this is. So like, we talked about a potential basketball court being built up there. Is that same strip of land, and that's not what we're talking about?
Well, that's at the end of that property, in a property that we own.
Okay, so we do own, like, along that strip, part of that turns into then,
Just that one lot
there's just one lot that's considered park property then.
that's considered.
That was something that we had already previously owned or purchased from them.
No, we didn't purchase from them. It's part of the Fairview development that we've had
Oh,
before.
that was a piece of Fairview
Yes.
that we saved for the potential of creating a space for, okay, all right, that's what I just wanted to clarify. So we do have property adjacent to what they're talking about selling. All right, thank you.
We do, thank you, Councilor Freely.
50-foot lot then that we own, or does anybody know the dimensions of that? I'm just wondering.
Well, I do not know. Do we know off the top of our head with that property? John, would you happen to have any information about that particular piece? I think that Brian Silber, who had some involvement in the request for that basketball court, may have some information. Our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber. Brian?
That piece of property is roughly about 2 acres. It is a very odd-shaped piece of property. Where we were looking at the potential for a future basketball court and park was on the western portion of that property. One of the drawbacks to that is it is also a road easement right through there. So we have pumped the brakes pretty hard on any potential basketball court being built in that area. The majority of the piece of the property that we own is not really suitable for any development. It sits behind several of the other properties in Fairview. It is very rocky and steep. Would make a good place for some hiking trails, maybe a mountain bike trail.
And the road,
Thank you, Brian.
the road easement would be to the north of that property then?
Yes, the road easement is on the north portion of the piece of the property that we own. or the northwest portion of the property that we
Easement
own.
to Arcelor or Middle, or who would that be? Arcelor?
To access utilities in that area.
Yeah, Jeff, I think we're at the point similar to what Counselor Paulser. So we do have some properties already that have been acquired, and I think we have to come up with some kind of a development plan with regard to what we're trying to accomplish with what we have, and whether or not this would be something we would add to that would be interesting to see in the future. But I do appreciate you coming forth and letting us know that this is available to the city.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Johnson.
What was the original purchase price of this and when was it purchased?
I'm not even sure it was tax forfeited back when we purchased it. Maybe if I had to guess.
And then I don't know if the question for Brian Lindsay or Britt, but if we authorize staff to work with the Latiners to look at this, will we offer that service to anybody, any citizen in Virginia who wants to sell their home or their property?
Good question there, Counselor Johnson.
Well, I guess my
Yep,
point
Brian?
here is,
Yeah, a good question. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Johnson, I think the answer to your question is it depends. I think we have to be open to receiving those types of proposals. I think if the city were to engage, we'd have to do that using our economic development authority. So each project or each proposal could be analyzed on its own merits, and the city could select those options that are held to
I appreciate that, thank you. I guess my point here is that we said no once, and I was sitting here when we said no the first time. The city's not in any that much better economic. You know, we still haven't received the $5.4 million for the bridge. We still haven't gotten that. We still don't have we just said no to $15,000 downtown Virginia. This council did. So,
I understand.
excuse me. So I guess at this point, if you have people who are willing to buy the property, sell it to them. And then it's their responsibility. As was alluded to, we have things in place to prevent properties being misused.
We also have options.
We created a special zoning ordinance on Widener's Way so people could build garages. And that I think there's only 1 or 2 lots left down there. It's a perfect use for that property. I will not authorize or agree with having city staff help you figure out how we can buy this from you. I think that's your job. I think I would agree with Mr. Lindsay and say, if you were looking to do some economic development, go to VITA, work through that process, they can bring it forward as appropriate. I don't think that this is the appropriate venue to come back a second time and tell us that we're ready to buy it from you. So I am no way going to support anything on this property because it's there and it's not hurting anybody. It's not hurting us. I'm sure you're paying taxes on it every year, so we're already getting a cut of that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. And before-
Just to clarify, there wasn't a no vote. It was put on hold. And, as far as the city looking to develop this with me, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to sell this property to the city. So if the city's interested, I can work with Britt or somebody to come up with a valuation of what the fair market value for it is, what the city would be willing to pay for it. It'd be your job then to decide if you guys want to do that. And if you don't, we'd go in a different direction. So it's pretty simple.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to Counselor Bearable, I just have, no, go Counselor Bearable first, and then I have just a couple comments.
I totally disagree with Councilor Johnson on this issue. I think it's imperative that this council moves this, at least to have conversation with our planning department. This is something that he can look at, with Mr. Lackner, look and see what the potential of that property is in the future for us. That's what we just put a brand-new department in place for. I mean, this is crazy that we're not going to utilize the department when we're landlocked, and it's part of our comprehensive plan, that land up there as residential. That's part of our comprehensive plan. And this doesn't cost us any money to have the two of them get together and talk about what it might be worth, what future things could be done up there. I think we're short-sighted if we don't take a look at this property. We've talked about this as long as I've been on the city council, which is many, many years. And I'm not trying to push a sale, but I think it's worth taking a look at. That's what we have a planning department for now. So Mr. Sullivan should be allowed to work with this gentleman a little bit to find out what the potential is for that property up north. We don't have much housing stock in this community where you can build anymore. So, and I agree with Councilor Paulson. I'm seeing more and more people that are questioning Twin Cities living, other places that are talking about coming up north and building. But the problem is they don't have a place to build. Thank you.
The other thing with this,
Thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Go ahead, Mr. Lackner.
the other thing with the project is when you sell the lot to a housing developer, you'd get your money back out of what you have into it. So then you're not going to be losing money on this project. This is a pretty good project for the city.
Well, you know, Mr. Lackner, I think we have two issues here. First, your request for us to consider buying the property from you and then using our authority to develop it and moving forward. The other part of it is your ability to meet and confer with our staff in an effort to try to find a way in which to develop the property. Now, you don't need council action for us to do that. You can just do this on your own. If you feel that you want to sell the property to the city or you want to work out some kind of agreement, just like any other developer that's in the community or any other individual that wants to sell their home, they'll come to our planning department and they'll look at a way in which, if the city's interested in doing so, staff works with that developer or works with that landowner to determine if that's a feasible path moving forward, and they'll move forward to that and come to the city council with respect to this. So I don't think the city council should be taking any action on purchasing the property or directing our staff to enter into an agreement to purchase the property. I think that the city staff, you can go to the city staff and work with them if you like. But I think the action you're asking us to take is to consider us to purchase the property from you and then develop it ourselves. I don't think there's any interest on the side of the council to do that. I think we do believe that at this point in time, we don't have enough information other than the property. We don't have the plat information. We don't have, the lots are 25 feet. You can't build on a 25-foot lot. All those things have to be worked out. And as the property owner, in order for you to prepare a potential sale to the city of Virginia or to any other entity, you need to work with those entities. And so there's nothing that prohibits you from meeting with Mr. Sullivan and our city staff with respect to that land and try to come up with some kind of a understanding of how you develop it. Because, those, like you said, they were zoned many, many years ago at 20-foot lots. You can't build a 25-foot lot there. You mentioned the garages and the big rail cars. Those aren't authorized under the zoning ordinance either. So our comprehensive plan is very clear. So you as a property owner have this property, which could be, as you consider to be a very valuable property. I think we recognize that, it's potential good residential property. So by meeting and conferring with our city staff, you can do that without authority from the council. But you're asking us, I think, at this time to direct our staff.
I'm asking if you guys have interest or not for me to pursue down that road. That's what I'm basically asking. I'm not asking you to say yes or no right now, because I understand you'd have to have a real proposal put forth.
Yeah, my opinion is, this is my personal perspective, I don't think we need a motion on the floor unless a councilor is willing to make one. We could just direct you to contact our city staff and work with them to try to find some kind of a way in which to develop that property. And if the staff feels it's appropriate for us to move forward, they'll come to the council and make a recommendation from staff to us with respect to this property. So, so does any other council have anything else you'd like to add? Is this kind of the process we should be moving forward with? That's what I think we should do. Just you work with our staff and, they'll they'll come up with whatever they feel is appropriate recommendation moving forward. So that's the way it usually works with these properties. Most people don't come to us asking us to purchase their property, or if there's an interest in the property, they don't usually come to the city council. They usually go to our staff and wish to do that. And I think we're asking you to do that, Mr. Lackner. But before you go, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. And I think where I was coming from was more big picture, Jeff, on this.
Right.
Like, you know, we did just turn down purchasing of a $15,000 property on Chestnut because, in my opinion, it needs to be condemned or demolished, and I just couldn't justify that. And a lot of times when a developer or an interested party comes forward, a lot of times the city will, you know, for $1 and other valuable considerations, you know, just for a development to come there. So I think from where I'm coming from, Mr. Mayor, is that I really would like to see us, you know, if possible, I'd like to see Mr. Sullivan really put together a plan that kind of parallels what our comprehensive plan's recommendations are for any land usage that we have acquired. And then if that would fit in to where your parents' lots are, that we could then implement, you know, I guess, mesh them in together into that plan, and bring, you know, hopefully put an RFP out there for a developer to come. And I think where I'm coming from is I'm interested in bringing in the tax base for residential housing. So I think that is a very attractive thing. And I think it's 20-something acres we have in Midway.
Yeah, right around there.
Around there. So I think we really need to look at that total package, like what do we have in the city, and assess that before we just buy different lots. And that's why I didn't want to buy the one on Chestnut Street, because we didn't have a developer coming forward saying, hey, I want that property, it's a hot property, and I want to build a building there. So I think it's important for us to have a plan, and I guess I'd like to see that. I'd say continue to work with city staff, but I really think we need to have a plan overall what to do with these available spaces for residential development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. And I think the point you make with respect to that comprehensive plan and looking at the land that's available, I know that Mr. Sullivan, John, and staff is working on that very issue, looking at our comprehensive plan. In fact, they did take the initiative last week, and I just happened to be around at that time. They are doing an investigation on the property up in a way to determine what lots are available, what can be developed, and you know what's the most cost-effective ways to do that. So they are actively working on that, which is very passionate for all of us, but particularly you sitting on that comprehensive plan committee as well. So moving forward, this would be inclusive of that analysis that Councilor Paulson has brought forward, Mr. Lackner. So we would urge you to meet with our staff and see what can be done with respect to that, and they'll make that determination as to how that fits into our comprehensive plan moving forward and what steps they feel is reasonable and necessary to bring to the council for consideration. So does that make sense to everybody? Councilor Paulson?
I didn't mean to jump a step and come straight to you guys. I just wasn't sure what the process would be, so.
No, that's fine. You're here, and now, you know, we're asking you to, you know, don't lose sight of your goal and objective, but meet with our staff, and they're better prepared to give you an analysis. They know what the appraisal is. They know what the zoning requirements are. They know what the plots are. They know what can and cannot be built there. So they make all that information. They're providing their professional services. They'll work with our city attorney as well. And then if they feel it deems it appropriate to come forward with, as part of the comprehensive plan moving forward, they will come to us, and then we will make a determination and decision at this level.
As Mr. Lackner stated, we left it as we don't have money at this time. So he's coming back again to ask, is the
Very
city
good.
in a better position? Which is why we came to the council first. Or do we feel we're in a better position? The answer last time was a flat no. This time we'll study it. So that's a good movement, I think, of what Mr. Lackner's looking for and what we're looking for to get us all on the same page. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Mr. Lackner.
Yep, I appreciate it, Counselor.
Anybody
Mayor,
else
Mayor.
before Mr. Lackner departs?
Oh, sorry.
Nope. Thank you very much.
I know you guys are busy, so thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Lackner.
Mayor, if I may move item number 8, Chief Lewis needs to run to a 10 o'clock meeting, which is 10 o'clock now. Approve entering into an agreement with Minnesota DNR for cooperative fire protection agreement for wildland firefighting.
We have this agreement in place already, Chief Lewis.
Thank you very much. You're correct. We've done this for a number of years. It's just been automatically renewed by the fire chief, but in light that the city council is the approving authority on these kind of agreements, we wanted to bring this before the council and just get your blessing on it. I can explain if you have any questions, but like Britt said, I am really supposed to run to that next planning meeting with Wold, so.
Well, what's nice about this, it's a reimbursable service we provide.
Correct. We have one with the DNR, and we also have one with the U.S. Forest Service. It's a 3-year repeating contract that comes up for renewal every 3 years.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
I will move the agreement between the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry, and the City of Virginia Fire Department.
I'll support.
Moved by Councilor Johnson and supported by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. One quick question, Chief Lewis. On the fee schedule or on the reimbursement schedule, is that pretty typical of what it's been in the past?
Yes, that's a pretty set type for your Class 1s and your Class 6 and
Okay.
reimbursements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Baraboo? Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Sorry. Next item on the agenda, item number 3, approve the resolution for change order number 1 for Silver Lake Trail improvements in the amount of $18,957.70.
Okay, the last one was the Bailey's Lake improvement.
Yeah, this one's a little different. We
This
have a
is
grant for
Silver Lakes.
$50,000 for Silver Lake, and we had $50,000 in our budget to match. The bids came in way lower than we expected, and so we discussed with Matt adding some more amenities to the Silver Lake project, including trees and benches and a handicap ramp to one of the picnic shelters.
Yep.
And still stay under budget.
Yes, I was looking for
It's-
that
it's a
information.
good change order.
to be disseminated publicly. Thank you, Britt.
Yeah.
Matt?
Britt pretty well explained it, unless anybody's got any other questions.
No, this is a
Orders automatically make everybody go, uh-oh. No, this is a good one. This is one
ray
we
of
want.
sunshine.
Yeah.
Coming under budget, being able to use with the grant money that we have available, because we came under budget, to add more amenities to the Silver Lake Trail, it's a win-win. So Councilor Paulson.
I'll move to approve the resolution.
Councilor Paulson moves to approve the resolution, supported by Councilor Johnson. Is that correct? Further discussion, Councilor Freely.
Just real quick, I mean, I was surprised about the whole Bailey Lake defoliation or whatever you call it. Is there going to be a similar extent to that at Silver Lake or not?
Oh, there's actually, one of the items that we're change ordering back in, I think there's 5 trees that have to come down, and we're gonna put 5 back. Of course, they won't be as big as they are now right away, but that is the plan. It won't, that whole shoreline won't be like the Bailey Lake one was.
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Okay, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Next item on the agenda is the Mech facility request for purchase. There's 3 items, and we have Brian Silver, our Park and Recreation Director here.
Brian, good morning once again.
Good morning. Bringing to the council 3 items for consideration. The first one is the purchase of a new Zamboni. Now, this new Zamboni is we are finalizing the legal documents for the sponsorship of this Zamboni. Komatsu will be sponsoring the purchase of this Zamboni, so we're very excited about that.
Hey, great, great.
So also, staff is very excited about this Zamboni. It is a brand-new Zamboni, and it also has several of the newer technologies added to the Zamboni, such as the level ice, which is not a technology that we currently have on either of our Zambonis. We've also done some other upgrades to this Zamboni, such as the stainless steel water distribution pipe that will prolong the life of the Zamboni, especially with our hard water that we have in the area. We also have the advanced water system and several of the other upgrades that you see. The total purchase price for this Zamboni, after trade-in of our old Zamboni, which is on its last legs, will be $144,685.95. Now, the reason I'm bringing this to you today, before we have all the legal paperwork in, is Zamboni is the only company that we can go to for this product. And we need to get on their production schedule if we're going to get this Zamboni in time for our grand opening and be able to use it.
Thank you, Brian. Real quickly, this is an electric Zamboni, which is, part of
Yes.
incorporated into the energy efficient thing. So thank you. And $144,685.95 commitment by Komatsu is huge. So, we can publicly say we're so appreciative now, but we'll be doing a formal thank you and a publication for that in the near future. So I think it's imperative for us to move forward because we do have a handshake agreement, which I think is somewhat binding at this point in time with intent. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Komatsu, and thank you, Brian, for pursuing that. I think it's wonderful news. I do have a question regarding our, your spreadsheet with our wish list and our necessity list.
Yes.
Is this the Zamboni that was on the wish list at 200,000?
This is the Zamboni that was on the wish list for 200,000. So
We can cross that off.
we can cross that off and notice that the quoted price is less than the wish list price.
Correct. So then that 200,000 will go back into your spreadsheet to be used in other
Yes.
ways in the FF&E. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Bearable.
No, I just going to say that we have to give kudos to Komatsu. They're a big employer in our area, and this will be a great PR for them also, for all they do for the mining industry.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for John Ward, who is the general manager of Komatsu, who is very community-minded. That whole company is community-minded. Here's one example of their generosity and commitment to their community. So this is fantastic. Councilor Freelieb, and then we'll look for a motion.
Yeah, I would go ahead and make a motion to approve the quote, and then for further discussion, if I could add.
Yes, so it's been moved by Councilor Freelieb to approve the quote for the proposed purchase of the Zamboni in the amount of $144,685.95 pending legal documents with the with Komatsu in the city. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Councilor Bearable. Further discussion, Councilor Freelieb.
Just quickly, Brian, so I'm assuming this is still going to be manually maintained, and we did purchase a stand for sharpening. Would this still be accommodated by that stand, or will we have to buy a new one to accommodate that?
We don't have a stand for sharpening. We send all of our blades out for sharpening. What we purchased here the other year, and I have built into this price, is the purchase of a second blade changing assistance device.
Okay.
That way, you're not physically handling these blades that are incredibly sharp, even when they're dull.
So the one we purchased does accommodate this, or we'll need
Yes,
another one?
it does accommodate this, but in the new building, we have two different Zamboni garages, so having a second blade changing device, we'd be able to have one in each garage.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freelieb. Thank you for that clarification, Brian. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
All right, the next item that is on the agenda for today
Yeah, this is interesting.
is the approving our proposed dance flooring for the Mech. Now, this is a portable dance floor that we will have. This is something that's been in our FF&E list. It will be utilized for weddings and events in the ballroom. The design team has looked at the different color options because we could go with a black and white checkered or different shades of laminate wooding, and we've chosen a stage color that matches the ballroom that we have. What we have done in this proposal is these are 36-inch tiles that interlock together. We've contacted several other facilities that utilize this product to see how durable it is, how well it has held up. And then we have put together basically once we put the whole floor together, we would be able to have a 21-foot by 42-foot dance floor. In addition, if we are not needing to utilize the entire dance floor, we could separate it into two 21 by 21 dance floors. So if we were to have two weddings going on simultaneously in the ballroom with the one divider wall put down, we would be able to have two dance floors out for use in the facility. In the quote that I am proposing that we approve today, I have added in some additional pieces, just in case we have lost or damaged pieces. We would have some extras on hand and would not have to rush to get other pieces in. We had budgeted $20,000 for this purchase, and the price that we have received in this quote that I'm asking you to approve is $5,971.26.
What was the original budget?
20,000.
Okay, very good, thank you. Thank you, Brian. A quick question before we move to the rest of the council. Is that enough space, 21 feet by 44 feet?
Oh, that's big.
Most dance floors that are purchased are 20 by 20. So for a conference center or for a wedding, yes, we're actually going to be able to provide double what many other facilities are providing.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson first, then Councilor Paulson, then to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask, what was the original budget? But
Yeah.
the Mayor beat me to it. So that's another positive because we're doing good on that. So thank you again. I do see it says the total, and then it says tax exempt pending receipt of Minnesota State tax exempt form. Are we in fact tax exempt from that as a purchase? Okay, so that's good too.
Yes.
So I would go ahead and move the quote.
Okay, Councilor Paulson moves to approve the quote for the proposed dance floor for the Mech in the amount of $5,971.26, which is significantly under budget. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely. Further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, I appreciate that you're planning ahead for the repairs too. I know dance floors can be heavily used. But this dance floor could also be utilized in one of the main arenas should there be some kind of event that needed that, so they can be used, or even outside should that come up.
Yes, this dance floor is actually an indoor-outdoor dance floor. So if we wanted to take the dance floor to Olcott Park, we would be able to do that. I don't think staff would be very happy with me if I said we were going to do that, but the dance floor is an indoor-outdoor dance floor. So in addition to utilizing it at the Mech, we could utilize it in other areas, including the arena during a non-ice event.
Well, and I appreciate that clarification because I do know that the dance studio downtown does struggle sometimes finding summer outdoor venues that are shaded. And to be able to provide a dance facility, dance floor in a shaded hard surface, I think that just expands our ability as a city to honor our arts, performing arts as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And the third item I am bringing before you today is approving the bleacher purchase for use in the secondary arena. Our plan all along for the secondary arena has been to use a portable bleacher system. That is exactly what we are proposing to purchase today. The secondary arena will be able to seat 300 individuals with standing room for additional individuals. We currently have 2 bleachers that we utilize in the back rink. It is our plan to take those 2 existing bleachers and move them over into the secondary arena in the Mech. We also want to go ahead and add 6 additional bleachers to that system so that on the east side wall, which is where the bleachers will be going, We have all of the seating that we need to accommodate the 300-plus individuals that, in our design, we have said would be able to be seated in that arena. Now, these are aluminum bleachers. They are 3 rows high. Also allows us all the adequate ADA spacing that we need still in the arena. They are not retractable bleachers that we are getting at this point. These are just the bleachers that you see also out at the baseball fields that we have, except they are only 3 rows high because that's all the space that we have in there, and that's all we need to get the number of people that we have. If in the future it is our desire to install a retractable bleacher system, we could upgrade to a retractable bleacher system and move these bleachers to our ball fields, if that is something that we desire to do. Although I believe these bleachers will work in this arena for quite a long time. The purchase price for these bleachers is $9,764.69. Again, this is under our proposed budget that we had put in. The budget that I had proposed for acquiring the bleachers was, again, $20,000. So we are a little bit over 50% savings from what we had budgeted for this purchase.
Thank you, Brian. Before we go to Councilor Bearable, would probably be the appropriate time for me to make a comment once again, and this is the last time I'm going to make this comment, about the Mech. Of all the things, about the Mech, I mean, design team, everybody's on the yeoman's work, great job. But for me, it's about the seating, and this is another, you don't have, I would prefer to have individual seating in the main arena. We're not going to have that. That's fine. That's the decision that's being made, and there's no backings on these bleachers either, which I think is an issue for those who are of senior citizens that want to lean back and sit down. And then the other part of it is the question that I have for you then, other than that comment, the question is the handicap accessibility to access these bleachers. How do they access it? Is there a special space for handicap accessibility, or I should say handicap, those who are physically challenged who need assistance in getting to their seat?
Yeah, if somebody is in a wheelchair, obviously they're not going to sit on the 3rd row of the bleachers. Still in the secondary arena, we do have that seating, that designated space there for those that are in wheelchairs so that they would be able to watch the game. We do not have as many of those designated seats in the secondary arena as we do in the main arena, for the simple fact that the main arena will have up to 2,000 individuals. This arena, 300. So many less spectators in the secondary arena. So by code, we do not have to have nearly as many handicap designated spots.
Thank you. And I just make one more comment. I would like to see those blue seats, I don't know what you're going to do with them, moved over to the secondary, but that's not going to be the case. This quote is, I'm going to stay on task. This quote is for these bleachers, which is over a 50% savings. Thank you, Brian. Councilor Bearable.
Brian, that 3rd row one, it's a 3-row high seating, correct?
That is correct.
Is that top row going to have an area where somebody can't fall off? They're going to have something on the back of that?
The top row will be against the wall, so you will not be able to fall back. The height of these bleachers do not require them to have any fencing around them.
Okay, so they're going to be non-attached any place, or there going to be some safety attachments for these?
They will not be attached anywhere.
And you're guaranteed they won't flip over on?
No, they are not going to flip over.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, Brian, when you talk about accessible, is it just a designated spot, or could there be a platform that the wheelchair can go up so it can actually see over the boards? I don't know if that's been given any thought, and I would just plant that for future discussion.
The glass is low enough that somebody in a wheelchair is able to see over the boards.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson, and then over to Councilor Frieden. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Are these bleachers the same style that's outside the tennis building, Tennis for All building? Where they have 3 rows?
Yes. They are similar style to
They're pretty,
those.
I mean, I've sat on those many times, they're pretty safe. So if we needed to, if we did upgrade in the future, they could easily be at the ball field or tennis building and be utilized safely by the community.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Freely.
Just real quick, so our existing current inventory includes 3 sets, you said?
We have 2 sets that we will be moving over.
And then, like, that are already in the back rank, basically?
Yes, they are currently in the back rink.
Are there still 2 at Silver Lake, or are those the 2 we're talking about?
No, those are from our park inventory. Those are used, typically those go up to Olcott Park around the bandstand for the summers for the city band
So
concerts.
they're spoken for?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Okay, thank you, Brian, and the design team for moving forward with this. So this is the last request, at least for the Mech in this regard. So it's been moved and supported. Has it been? We're looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to purchase the bleachers.
I'll support.
Moved by Counselor Freelieb and supported by Counselor Baraboo to improve the quote for the bleacher purchase for the Mech secondary arena. And if I heard that correctly, it's $5,971.26.
9,000.
$9,571? I'm sorry, $9,764.69. I got figures all over my paper. Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, council.
Brian. Item number 5 is a request from Looney's Coffee Shop at 235 Chestnut Street, number 1, to conduct music the first Thursday of each month on 3rd Avenue, and for the city to close the 3rd Avenue section from 4 to 7 p.m.
Great. Glad to see that coming back. So moved. Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Freely and support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Additionally, they'd ask permission to have an outdoor alumni gathering on July 17th from 5 to 8 p.m., which also includes a closure of 3rd Avenue in front of their building.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Johnson to approve. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 6 on the agenda is approve the proposed letter of understanding between the city and AFSCME for the Mech scheduling and hours of work. This is to allow our Mech staff to work 10-hour shifts rather than what is listed as 8-hour shifts in the contract.
And this is a memorandum of understanding. Thank you. For any further information and any questions you might have, we have our AFSCME representative here, Scott Duranko. Scott, did you want to come forward? And does anybody have any questions or concerns, or did you want to say anything, Scott? So Scott is here if we have any questions with respect to the schedule. It's acceptable to staff moving forward. We have a letter of understanding that you worked out with the AFSCME local. Brian, the Park and Rec, they've all worked together to bring this schedule forward. So it's the letter of understanding to be added to make an adjustment to this schedule for the Mech. Looking for any questions, concerns, comments, or action from the council. Counselor Baraboo.
Yeah, with this schedule, Scott, if we end up with a wedding that goes beyond a certain time of your 11 p.m. For some reason, is there something in this? I didn't really check if it can go past it. It's just going to be regular overtime then for staff?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor Baraboo. Anyone else? Counselor Freely.
And this rotation then includes the two newly hired utilities where that's allowed this to be able to create this schedule.
Yep, absolutely, yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Johnson.
Mayor, I see that there is no ice plant manager on Sunday. Is that going to be a problem?
Let's defer that question to our Park and Rec Director. Brian?
How the schedule ends up working is it is a rotating schedule, so it's not every Sunday that we do not have an ice plant manager there. It basically works out that there end up being 3 days during the course of each month that we would not have an ice plant manager on site. And in all honesty, the terminology ice plant manager is probably not the best terminology for that position, as they're focusing more on the ice maintenance equipment and the ice maintenance itself. So essentially, we would not, when we don't have the ice plant manager position on schedule for that day, is we would not be scheduling maintenance on the equipment or maintenance on the ice for those days.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So what will happen is like employee A will take week 1 and they work that first week 1, then they start week 2. So they know for the next 8 weeks, this is what their schedule is, and then you start again at the top.
And I kudos to you all for figuring that out. I'm sure once the staff get used to the new schedule, they'll really appreciate not having to work every weekend their entire career. So I appreciate that very much.
Correct.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I really appreciate you all working this out because it looks confusing. I do have a question, though, in terms of, I can foresee this overtime happening consecutively anytime there's a wedding on the weekend. So is that just something we just have to accept, and it is what it is?
Yes. I mean, there is going to be overtime. Another example of when there will be overtime is if we are going to have a non-ice event in the middle of hockey season, and we have like and forgive me, hockey moms and figure skating moms for even mentioning this at this point, but after a Thursday evening high school hockey game, the crew goes out there and shaves the ice and brings out that temporary floor that the council had approved. And then Friday, staging is being set up and chairs are being set up. Friday night is a concert. Then after Friday evening, crews are in there again taking down all of the chairs and the flooring. Both the setup and the tear down could result in and would result in overtime. In addition, weddings and events that are going past our normal operating hours can and will result in overtime. We have calculated this and figured this in our rental rates to accommodate for these things, knowing that we do have that possibility.
And have you spoken with I'm assuming with Sherry, our HR finance director, regarding the actual, what it would look like for the overtime in the budget?
Well, it's not in the budget, this budget, 21, but it is definitely going to be something that we have to plan for next year. And yeah,
can you give us kind of an estimation on what that would look like, dollar-wise?
It's really going to be dependent on
the
the
events.
number of weddings and events that are running, that we are scheduling. I can tell you that for 2021 right now, we have 3 weddings that are booked. Ideally, I would like to have 2 to 3 weddings or events like this booked per week. So we are potentially looking at having additional staff on site bi-weekly, if not weekly. Also keep in mind that it does not necessarily have to be the entire staff that is staying. If it is just,
I guess that was my question. Could you guys provide something to us to maybe give us a couple different scenarios, what that might look like, so we can understand that? Or if that would be something Sherry would do?
yeah,
No, Brian?
I'd point out something that it depends on what needs to be done. If it's the wedding and we just need somebody to stay and lock the door, it could be the Mech facility manager that stays and locks the door and all the staff goes home at 11. But if we need to tear the whole room down and have it ready for our convention tomorrow morning, then staff's going to have to stay after and tear the
So
whole thing.
there's lots of different scenario type.
There
things that
is,
could
there is. And
happen.
if it's just closing down the concession stand, we would probably just have the lead concession stand worker close it down, make sure the building's locked when they leave, and they're done. So it depends on what really is going on. is
Okay,
when the
and
overtime's
I'm
gonna
comfortable with that. I guess I just wanted to understand what we could expect in terms of how we adjust the budget in that area.
Yeah, the staff has no desire to stay after 11 o'clock. They've already made that very, very clear.
Is the Mech going to have its own budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
And also too, when we are going to be doing the 2022, we're going to have to take an estimate. I mean, we're going to have to do kind of like forecasting.
got it. Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Paulson. Before we go to Counselor Bearable, you know, when the Miners Memorial Building, which is in heyday, was probably 1962. Seriously, over the course of, it's been deteriorating over time. When it was humming, and there were a lot of dances and things going on, the ASPE contract accommodated for the overtime. When there was a dance night, there was overtime. When there was a concert, there was overtime. As a police officer many years ago, there was overtime. And so this is not unusual because it's the Mech. It's just the hours of operation and the events moving forward. But it would be helpful, as Councilor Paulson indicated, to have a projection moving forward. So I'm glad you're preparing for that for 2022, Sherry. So Councilor Bearable first, and then Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, Brian, just a quick question, or Scott. When we have all these youth hockey tournaments that are going to occur where we may have 16-member teams there for their maximum of these tournaments, you'll have enough Zamboni operators there to cover the full-time, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Because I anticipate that's going to be a big thing for this arena, these big tournaments.
We've already had numerous competitions like that when the guys are more than willing to come in and take care of what needs to be taken care of. Absolutely.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
My question, I guess, is for the union in general. We go through the miners' staff for overtime and then into the parks, and so potentially any one of the Ask Me members could be offered overtime when it comes to setting and resetting, that kind of stuff. Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
It'll go to Park and Rec first, and then at that point, then it would proceed over to either the City Hall staff, or is also included in on that, and then also Public Works. So one way or another, we have coverage throughout everything that needs to be done.
So there's opportunity for all Ask Me employees?
All Ask Me employees, correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Councilor Bearable, Councilor Johnson. Looking for a motion moving forward or some council action with respect to this memorandum of understanding.
I've got just one more question, Mayor.
Councilor Bearable.
Scott, if somebody gets a request for overtime, they turn it down, do they go to the bottom of the list then, or do you have no such thing? And
Yes, what it does there, it goes to the person with the least amount of hours, and it works from there all the way down
All
through
the
the
way-
park
okay.
staff. Yeah, and then it would go to Public Works or City Hall with the least amount of hours.
So they
So
don't
we get
get- so the same
we get the
person-
equalization of overtime
that's what
throughout
I'm,
the staff.
that's
Yep.
what I'm asking. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking for some council action
I'll make a
here.
motion to approve the LOU between the city and the ASME union for the Mech scheduling and hours of work.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Freelieb and supported by Councilor Johnson to approve the proposed letter of understanding between the city of and AFSCME for the Mech scheduling and hours of work. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Brian.
Item number 7 is a review the memorandum of understanding between Virginia Police Department and Range Mental Health Center for a mental health practitioner to work with the police department. And this mental health practitioner will be located with the community resource officer in the office at the mall on a part-time basis
And there's a grant that Range Mental Health received,
to pay for this person.
pay for this property. So
All we
there's no-
need to provide is a space, a desk, and a chair.
Yeah, so there's no actual cost to the city. This is a grant. I know that because I sit on the Range Mental Health Board, so they've been working on this collaborative for us. So this is a great asset and a resource for us moving forward. Looking for council action, questions, comments, or concerns. Councilor Johnson.
I will move for discussion.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve entering in this agreement between Virginia Police Department and Range Mental Health for a mental health practitioner to work with the police department, primarily the community resource officer, with space being provided by the city within that space that's currently operated and by the community service officer. So is there support?
I'll support for additional discussion.
Support by Councillor Paulson for additional discussion. Further discussion, Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Would it be possible to have our community relations officer, maybe along with someone from Range Mental Health, just come and maybe give us a little overview of what this looks like and what kind of programming they have available so the general public could understand what level that they are working and collaborating together? Because I think they're pretty effective with what he's been doing along with Jada, and I think it would be maybe timely to have them come forward and just maybe give us a little update on how they're collaborating together.
Thank you. And we could reach out to Janice Allen, the Director of Range Mental Health, to arrange that presentation to the public. We could do that, Britt? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Paulson. It's been moved and supported. Further discussion, Councillor Johnson.
First, I noticed that there's a sign up outside of the mall that says Community Resource Officer, something similar to that, so that was kind of cool. And I did speak with the Deputy Chief a little bit about this. We were chatting. And one of the things this helps to do is the follow-up after they've had the interaction with the police. You know, the police give them resources, and then the idea is that this person 2 days or 3 days later calls them and goes, "Hey, did you call? Can I help you call?" So it's more of that follow-up stuff that's really what is missing in the key of the course of events of getting folks help. So, and I think it'd be great to have John come in and give us an update anyway, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the Duluth Police Department is doing this for quite a long period of time, and they've been very successful, and it's shown some really significant measurable results. So thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item is item number 9, approve the resolution for proposed lease purchase of an Elgin Whirlwind four-wheel street sweeper. And we do have Bill Hennis, Public Works Director, in the audience.
Thank you. We did purchase one a few years back, and we have an old antiquated one so we'll have two. Is that correct, Bill? Would you like to come forward, please, or just use the microphone that's over there, or whatever you deem appropriate, and give us a little information on this new Elgin sweeper. Morning.
Morning, Council. This is for the white one. If you see them out on parade here this spring, you'll see the blue Pelican, which is our newer model that we purchased a couple years ago. This is for the white Whirlwind. And the reason we have two different types of sweeper is one does better in different scenarios. We have one that specializes really in leaf pickup in the fall. The other one's more of a gutter cleaner. This one here, we need to replace. It's about 10 years old. Everything's pretty well bent up underneath. You can imagine it's going down streets and gutters all over town, so it's catching on items. And two, this is an engine that was a first generation when we switched over to the DEF for pollution. And unfortunately, these engines in this international have a real bad history of going bad. And we're trying to get rid of this before we end up with an engine failure and really have nothing for trade-in value.
Thank you, Bill. Budget?
If these sweepers are always not my fun item to buy, but.
No items are fun.
Some can be fun. Waiting for those bumper cars to come.
So, well, that would be fun. Yeah, that's an exception to the rule. Okay, go ahead.
But I believe in your packet you have a lease agreement for over 5 years. 5 years.
5-year lease.
It's a little more easier to swallow in a budget. I would prefer to do that. It's one of these necessary evils that we have to buy because they just get abused. I mean,
Well, so the question I have, whether you lease or buy, the payment comes from where?
it's going to come out of Public Works, and we will have to budget it. And the first payment isn't due until
On delivery, probably
the
in
first one.
October, We have worked this out so we make sure we get it in September, so we have it for our fall cleanup.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Johnson.
I will move the resolution authorizing the lease purchase of the four-wheel vacuum street sweeper.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Further discussion? Counselor Bearable, and then on to Counselor
Mr.
Paulson.
Hennis, just a couple of things in there. I see at the beginning you got 311,000 with the option for a lease, and then down below, if you add up the 5 yearly payments, it's only 299,000. If you're going to lease it, which is the right dollar amount in there?
If you look on the bottom of the second page, Councilor Berber, we do have a trade-in of 35,000 to bring that down to 260.
I missed that, I'm sorry. Okay, that makes up the difference of the money I was talking about. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you. So I'm sorry, I wanted to double reread that again. So it's a lease to purchase, so at the end of the 5 years, we own it, or would you have to actually purchase it then after the?
We own it at that time.
Okay, and then what is the warranty that normally comes with those?
We purchased the extended warranty. Hold on one.
Is it in there, Bill, and I just didn't
Yep.
read it? I'm sorry.
We have a non-contract. If you look at about the second from the bottom of the second page, we have a 5-year.
Okay, so that covers us during that lease portion, the full lease
Correct.
is covered. Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Paulson. Okay, it's been, Counselor Freely.
Is that a fixed interest rate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Freely. We have a motion on the floor in support. Chris? Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mayor, the next item on the agenda is discuss city's labor negotiation strategy related to labor negotiations with MAPE, and this portion of the meeting may be closed as per Minnesota Statute 13D05 Subdivision 3. And I suggest maybe a break before we go to closed session.
and first of all, we're going to take a break, and second, do you deem it appropriate to necessary to close the meeting?
Yes.
Very good.
Mayor, can I take
Yes.
can I take one item before we close the meeting? Britt and I talked about it this morning.
Well,
If you want to do it, it's a real quick item.
He needs to add on there, please.
Yeah, it's a real quick item before we take our break.
okay, go ahead.
The Board of Equalization is on May 6th, and I'm going to have to cancel out of that Board of Equalization. I have a surgical procedure on that day that's at the same time, so I'm going to need a replacement for myself for that meeting, that's all. You guys can decide who wants to replace me.
Thank you, Counselor Bearable. Very good. Counselor Johnson.
Mayor, I was contacted yesterday by a small business on Chestnut Street that they are still being charged the $60 for the garbage, and I'm very concerned about that. I thought the council had made a directive to advise that that be stopped and going back. We did not do anything formally. I will make a motion that we direct staff to correct and refund or credit the overcharging of the garbage fees to the small businesses.
Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I can't support because it might be a conflict, right?
Well, I'll step down, and I'll step down as the mayor and support that. Thank you. Further discussion?
I do have further discussion, though.
Well, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. So I do remember receiving an email about the employee made a mistake and that it was going to be corrected. So I didn't think we had to take a motion. So I'm curious as to why that didn't get corrected as stated in the
I
email.
was looking for discussion on, do we correct it, what should we move forward, and I just never heard anything back. And then as things go, we just never got it corrected. However, we certainly can if the council makes the motion to correct it back to what the rate.
Okay, thank you.
And part of that motion, thank you, Counselor Paulson, but part of that motion is to correct and rebate.
Rebate or credit.
Rebate or
Based on
credit,
what-
whatever, so they're made whole.
Correct.
Thank you. So that's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion?
Just one quick thing,
Counselor Bearable?
this is going to be done on an individual basis, not on a blanket, correct?
Correct, correct. We have to go through, it will take time, so I do ask everybody to be patient with us because we will have to go through every account and see which ones we made the error on.
Okay, thank you.
We will get it corrected.
And thank you. I guess I was under the impression that we would do that as well. And I have heard from particularly one downtown business who I frequent a nonprofit club, and I hear it every day. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for the motion moving forward. Hopefully that'll be corrected as soon as possible. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's take 5. Let's close the meeting. Get a motion to close the meeting first.
Yes, please.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Bearable. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is now closed. Let's take a short break. Thank you.
I'll call you back on the phone. Perfect, thank you. Thank you.